Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the sexiest voice in triathlon, with the sexiest background in triathlon this week. It's James Bell. Jimbo, welcome back.
Yeah, man. I'm man in Amsterdam. How you doing? You all right?
I think we can actually establish that of all the places in the world, you're in fact not in Amsterdam. That is the one place that I've never known you to be. You are our roving reporter. You're heading over to the Outdoors Triathlon today.
I am. Yeah, I'm buried in the French Alps at the moment, spending time in different places with different people. But definitely heading over to watch the Alpe d'Huez Triathlon today. Sam Long's going to be making a splash there, hopefully, and also MX Endurance member Catherine Hine is going to be racing, so I'll give her a bit of a cheer along on the road.
Fantastic. Now, I think we'd be amiss to, obviously, I know all about this, but the Tour de France is wrapped up, and one thing in particular, I think we need to talk. Have you seen that footage of the Danish celebrating their victor?
Yeah, it was like a rally, wasn't it? Like a mass political rally. It was really quite unique watching an entire country turn out with that level of enthusiasm. Obviously, they haven't had a Tour de France winner since when, Tim Ford?
I mean, mate, again, I don't want to try to deprive you of the limelight, so it's your opportunity to shine.
Yeah, since Mr. 66 in 1996, which was Brownlee. He had one of the highest hematocrit levels ever recorded in professional cycling, and he did demonstrate that quite successfully on Utakam that year when he dropped Miguel Indurain. And first time Miguel Indurain had been popped in his 5-year Tour dominance. So Bjarne dethroned the famous Miguel Indurain and was the last Danish winner of the Tour de France. Since then, he has admitted doping and admitted his wrongs, but
really, wow, I'm shocked.
It's good. Yeah, it's good to see. It's good to see Jonas Vingegaard doing what he's doing, and it's great to see that level of enthusiasm from a country that hasn't had a bit of a dearth of tour winners since then.
And I do appreciate the fact that I gave you that information just before we hit record, like almost like the script for you to read. So I obviously people can't claim that I'm not giving you the opportunity to shine as well, mate. So there you go, guys. I do share the knowledge.
If I didn't know you, mate, my life would be worse.
I mate, exactly. Like, you would literally, people would think you know nothing about cycling, mate. So I'm glad that I've got you back. You should be grateful. But what people should also be grateful for is that this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by 4-time world champion Chris McCormack. Jimbo, what's something you like about MX Endurance?
Mate, we always say it's an online community and it provides support, it supplies encouragement, but it's weekends or weekdays now, as it's Thursday, weekdays like this where I get to go and see a race live, and I get to see that MX Endurance kit climbing one of the biggest and most famous mountains in pro sport, in pro endurance sport. And that's what I love, because I love the fact that I'm going to get out there and I'm going to see Catherine doing her race. And there may well be more MX members racing as well. But that big X on that kit stands out nicely, mate. And it gives an opportunity to really give some enthusiasm.
That's why one of our hashtags is MX marks the spot, because you can certainly spot that big giant red X from a long ways away. And it makes it a lot easier to spot your fellow MX team members. No, I'm excited to see how Kat goes. She's a very... I think she lives locally to you as well, doesn't she? You live nearby.
She lives very close to me in Devon. So she's a warrior, mate. She's a warrior. She is a stubborn little fucker, and we'll get it done.
Fantastic. Well, we talked a lot about it last week. I think we were going on about Sam and how Sam's. You said it's like the 21 switchbacks, hideous. Get up the top, and then you do the run. Sounds like a good time.
I'm very interested to see how Sam Long climbs, because we haven't seen him race a course like this. There's hilly courses in triathlon, there's undulating courses in triathlon, then there's Alpe d'Huez, and it's not just the Alpe d'Huez at the end. You go over 2 mountains before you get there. So you swim in this ice cold lake, crystal clear ice cold lake, and then you get on the bike and you do two mountain summits before you get to the bottom of Alpe d'Huez. Then you finish at the top of Alpe d'Huez. So I'm intrigued to see how, the self-described big unit can cope with that level of climbing, because this is suddenly we're in Europe, man, and we're climbing some of the most famous climbs in pro cycling. So how about it, Sam? Let's see what you can do.
Didn't you? I think there was a period recently where he because he's always referred to himself as the strongest legs in triathlon, and I think it was maybe after Roth or another, and he's like, "Yep, I don't think I'm the strongest legs in triathlon anymore." Again, I love that Sam's doing this European tour and just picking these races, and we'll be talking about Sam a little bit later in the episode. So good luck again. People, by the time this comes out, it's already happened. So people will be
history, like, we're caught between the devil and the deep blue sea this week with the Com Games and the Alpe d'Huez Triathlon happening the day we record or the day after we record. So it's hard.
What does that think?
We've got that balancing
act. Yeah. Alpe d'Huez the day we record, Com Games the day the podcast comes out.
Yeah.
So it should be pretty good timing for me actually, because I think it's UK morning, so it should be Sydney evening. I hope it's not like middle of the day though.
You'll have a sociable one because I think they're early morning in the UK, so you'll have a nice evening, Friday night view, mate. Crack yourself a frothy, as you call it, and sit down and watch that triathlon.
Because I'll tell you what, mate, I did not have some very user-friendly viewing last weekend with some races that I wanted to watch. But again, we'll talk about that later in the episode. Let's start this week with the first thing that came out. This came out quite recently. Actually, this got broken for me in the MX group. I saw somebody post, I can't remember, maybe it was Lee Shelvis. But that is the fact that Alistair Brownlee gets a new Olympic honour with a key IOC role. Graham Shaw from Tri 24/7 has put together this summary. And it goes, the 34-year-old Yorkshireman was selected this week along with 3 other athletes, US track star Alison Felix, Canadian sprinter and bobsled Olympian Oloisi Smith, and Afghan road cyclist Massumar Alizada for the IOC's Athletes Commission. The quartet joined the commission with the potential to serve for a term of up to 8 years. They will now strive to represent the voices of athletes within the Olympic movement. A delighted Brownlee reflected on his appointment by detailing how watching the Olympics as a youngster inspired him to become a Games great. It's an honour to be appointed to the IOC Athletes Commission. I am a product of the Olympic movement. Watching the first ever Olympic triathlon in Sydney inspired me to dream and work hard towards those dreams. It will be a privilege to represent the athletes of the Olympic movement and play a small part in helping to realise the dreams of more young people. Thomas Bach, president of the International Olympic Committee, said, "We are absolutely delighted to have the voice of one of our most successful and charismatic athletes, Alistair Brownlee, joining the Athletes Commission." World Triathlon President Marisol Casado added, "His voice and the voice of all triathletes around the world will be taken even more into consideration and is again the proof that our sport has a strong presence in the Olympic movement." James Bale.
Yeah, Alistair Brownlee. I mean, certainly one of the most successful as well. And actually Johnny is, isn't he? It depends which way you look at it. From a certain point of view, as Obi-Wan once said. He's one of the most successful Olympic athletes of all time. So having the weight of his voice in an organisation and a committee like this is a very powerful thing to have. I think that it's good that athletes like him will want to give back to things like this and want to be part of, the future growth and progression of the Olympic movement within triathlon, or the provision of triathlon within the Olympic movement. I'm interested in Thomas Bach's comment as the most successful and charismatic athlete. Is he the most charismatic athlete when you see him interviewed and you see him talking? I question that. But I mean, do you think this is a paid role as well, or is it voluntary?
Oh, I don't know, mate. I hope anything to do with the Olympic Committee and money is well separate, to be honest, considering they're not the most ethical of organisations out there, I don't believe.
The gravy chain rolls on.
I mean, it depends how you want to define charismatic, I suppose, mate. Is he certainly he certainly has a character, like he certainly has a presence.
The charisma of a bulldozer, isn't it?
I wonder if you could ask his fellow competitors how charismatic he is in those pelotons in the middle of a race when he was racing short course.
Exactly. So I think if I'm honest, charisma and that kind of thing doesn't really matter that much when you're striving, you're working for something like this and trying to make a difference and trying to bring your years of experience to improve the Olympic journey for many others. I think charisma is a side issue, but it's about experience and a drive to make things better. And I think one thing we can certainly say about Alistair Brownlee is he's driven.
I was just thinking while reading this is that he's on the board of the PTO. He's on the athlete board for the PTO. He's now on the commission for the IOC. Like maybe these sports bureaucracy roles is sort of the future path we might see for Alistair Brownlee post sport. Like, we see a lot of triathletes, they go through the sport, then they end up as a coach, and then they sort of just dwell in that space. Whereas, I wonder if we're going to see Ali move more into these. I just think maybe we might.
I'll bet you any of my money, that we never see Alistair Brownlee as a coach. Ever.
No, well, it's funny because the next thing we're going to talk about, I actually didn't include it, but yeah, he's like, I don't see myself coaching. I don't think he'd enjoy being a coach very much either. He's too charismatic, mate. He's too charismatic.
Far too charismatic. It would become a love-in as opposed to a coaching relationship.
But I am going to talk. So the next article is still about the Brownlees, and I took out some excerpts here. It's an excellent article from a friend of the podcast, Tim Hemming, 220 Triathlon. I'd really recommend, if you want the full picture, go check this article out. It's fantastic. It's an article that Tim's done with both the Brownlee brothers, Alistair and Johnny Brownlee, on injury woes, changing dynamics, and career goals. And I just wanted to pull out a few bits from this article because I think it's relevant to a lot of the stuff we talk on this podcast, mostly speculating about the future. But the first thing he talks about is Johnny Brownlee's next move. Johnny's sights remained fixed on short course racing. A planned Tokyo farewell became a reawakening. His performance in finishing fifth in the individual race and setting the GB quartet up for gold in the mixed relay convinced him he can compete for a fourth Olympic medal in Paris. If I can't, I don't want to be there, he says. If he can, he'll make history. While it might be 2 years away and Johnny will be 34, his prospects don't seem to have diminished greatly. In terms of selection, he's currently an automatic pick. As it stands, Yee and Brownlee are the two standout British male contenders, and perhaps, worrying for selectors, a podium threat from another British male doesn't look imminent. As Johnny showed in a victory in a World Cup in Sardinia a fortnight before Leeds, he remains one of the best all-round triathletes in the world. And despite the foot speed of somebody like Yee, he also thinks he can run fast enough over a closing 10 kilometres to take the tape in Paris. I can go to the track and easily run fast enough, he says. It's about the speed off the bike and being on the start line, healthy, confident, and backing myself. Then later in the article, they go to the middle distance, and he says, I've got nowhere near to cracking a 70.3 yet. I trained unbelievably well for Gran Canaria and was flying beforehand. I thought I'd done everything right, but nutrition-wise on the bike, I didn't drink half of what I should and just capitulated.
Love that word.
That was what was interesting. Yeah, it's a great word. I was actually I almost had a little bit of joy when I saw it. I was like, yes, let's do this. And I know how to pronounce it, so I can't get accused of butchering it. That was what was interesting watching the Ironman World Championships and Kristian Blummenfelt. He ran it all with a bottle, sipping away, getting it right, and fair play, because I know how wrong it can go. To continue running well at the end of an Ironman marathon was impressive. He was still moving in the last 5 kilometers. But the lure of short course is a strong pull, and Johnny has again been confirmed on the roster for Super League Triathlon's autumn series, which has been extended to 5 events through September and October, including a return to London's Docklands and a first visit to Toulouse. Now, before we go to Ali, what do you think about the Johnny Brownlee stuff?
Yeah, I love it. I love it, mate. I really do. I really love the fact that he had that performance at the last Olympics, and partly because of his finishing place there and how well he did, and certainly what he did in the mixed team relay. And couple that with how close Paris is, it's not your 4-year cycle that we're normally used to, gave him the ability to go, you know what, I'm not done. And, oh man, I know we're a long way off and a lot of things can change, but I would love to see Johnny Brownlee beat Alex Yee and take that gold medal. It would just be, we're a long way away from making any predictions or because who knows if either of them are going to get there in healthy or still firing as they are now, because we're years away. But it would just be amazing. I'd just be like, it would be a win for the old campaigners,
Yeah, I love that idea. I think I'm excited about the prospect of seeing Johnny Brownlee at the Olympics again. Like, I like having a Brownlee at the Olympics. It's sort of like, at least for me, the first Olympics 2012, I remember watching the triathlon in. It was, obviously Ali, and then Rio, same thing. So I think there is something about having a Brownlee at the Olympics that's quite special. I find it interesting that he's like, I can't do 70.3 very well. I've not been very good. And I think I saw that his PTO rank is like 144th in the world or something, where he's had he came 6th. He came 20th in Daytona, I think 6th in Portugal, and then whatever he came in that challenge race. But I also love the fact that he's like, I was just going to this one to, it's going to be on my last race. He gets, gold medal. He's like, no, I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah, I think that performance at the 70.3 not being quite what he wanted is indicative of the fact that he's still fully focused on short course. He's not willing to compromise his short course racing in order to really refine and fine tune that 70.3 yet. And I think he's I would love to see him do well, and I'm fully in Johnny's corner.
Here's the okay. Let's flip this around a little bit though, and let's talk off the article. Let's just hypothesize now, I suppose. I think we've seen a lot of athletes over the last, well, basically a lot of the Olympics, with the exception of maybe a Simon Whitfield, who 2008 probably wasn't. Simon Whitfield was a great athlete, but sort of was a bit of a surprise to win the silver medal, considering he won in 2000. Was 8 years later. We saw Ali Brownlee sort of struggle last Olympics and ended up not going. Like we've seen athletes, I think, who tend to chase the dream a little too long and ultimately sort of mess up their long course aspirations a little bit. Like again, you almost look at what Alistair Brownlee's been doing lately, and you kind of wonder, did he hold on to short course for a little too long where he should have probably committed to long course? Do you think that maybe that's something that Johnny is at risk at? Maybe a bit like what Vince Louis been doing? I don't know. Like, what do you think about that?
I think the reverse. I think quite the reverse. I think if he was to focus on 70.3 in long course now, he would be compromising what he can achieve in short course. I mean, did you see what
commit to one.
Yeah.
Commit to one.
Commit to one.
Yeah. Don't dabble. Don't dabble in both.
Because if he dabbles, then he's gonna compromise both. And I don't think he's going to do long course as well as he's going to do it short course. And look at what he did in the mixed team relay. He was the anchor of that team. And coming off the back, he crushed it. And coming off the back of that and saying, I've got one more in me. And I truly believe he has. I don't think this is a case of someone going one too many Olympics, one too many rounds. He ain't punch drunk. I think he's got that. He's really got this in him.
So you think focus solely on the Olympics for the next? It's not even 2 years now. So focus solely on the Olympics to Paris. Don't even bother with.
Never do another 70.3 until it's unless he's doing it as part of his coaching for the short course. But don't do a 70.3. Then go right. I'm done. That was my final Olympics. I'm definitely done. 34. It's over. And then if he wants to go long, fully focus on the long, and he will do something that his brother didn't do successfully, which was not have a boot in both camps and not compromise both.
I think that's pretty sage advice, to be honest. Johnny, there you go. We've given you the answers. On to Ali B, or Alistair Brownlee. Following the performances of Kristian and Joe Skipper at sub-7, Alistair Brownlee believes it's possible to go faster. By how much depends on conditions and the rules, he says. For example, the warm weather will have cost minutes on the run. I think we've invented a new discipline in the sport, and I look forward to seeing more of it. Whether Alistair will be partaken remains to be seen. He's hopeful of a return this year, but being fit enough to both qualify and be competitive for the Ironman World Championships in October seems unlikely. My plans are to race as much as possible. I have kept the training ticking along while the hip has recovered, and I'm looking forward to getting back to full strength. Now, we know that Ali, again, we'll talk about it later, didn't have the best performance in Edmonton over the weekend. And I also saw that he's on the start list for Swansea 70.3 this weekend. So he's going straight from Edmonton, straight into another race. So I guess it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back. But what do you see for Ali in the future? It's
been a very Brownlee heavy entry to this week's podcast, isn't it? But yeah, I think, I don't know. There's what I feel I should say as a podcaster, to boost the sport along and generate enthusiasm, and then there's what I feel I should say is what I actually think, and what I actually think.
Say what you actually think, mate. Let's get a bit. What do you think?
I don't see Alistair Brownlee firing at long course. I don't really. I think he's coming from this hip injury. He hasn't got the running behind him. I feel he's a bit breakable, and it worries me that we'll never really see him in full flight at a long course. And from what we were saying a minute ago about Johnny, about not having a boot in both camps, from a very outside perspective looking in, when he tried to have that boot in both camps, and he was training hard for the short course over the speed, and then he was getting Achilles injuries and calf injuries when he went long course because he was training for speed rather than endurance. I just feel that the ship might have sailed for him a little bit, and I feel his body may just be a little bit too worn and battered to really ever succeed at that long course racing. I'd love to be proved wrong, though. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being a dick about it. I'd love to see him.
It's interesting to talk about because one of the things that we've spoken a lot about with Lionel Sanders is the fact that, or Terenzo Bozzoni, for example, is while their biological age is still relatively young, their athlete age might be older. Like Lionel, we know that Lionel's had the rough background with, drug addiction and, all this stuff. So, which means his athlete age might be older than his age. Terenzo Bozzoni, same thing, was relatively young. Terenzo basically just vanished. I don't think he ever formally announced his retirement, but he just sort of vanished at a relatively young age. Alistair Brownlee has been doing the sport for a very, very long time. And he's been performing at an extremely high level for a very long time. So while he might be in his early 30s, athletically, he might be like older. And I'll even be honest, like, people who listen to this podcast regularly will hear me a lot say that I genuinely think I think we're going to see Alistair Brownlee crack it and it's going to be amazing. I'm starting to question it, mate. And it's funny. Maybe this is the blessing that he needs, because I did the same thing with Daniela Reef before St. George's here and she came good. But I really am like watching what happened in Edmonton over the weekend. I really was like, okay, maybe he really is struggling with this distance, because it just keeps something coming up.
Yeah.
And I absolutely hope I'm wrong. And maybe me starting to doubt things is the blessing that he needs to go off and absolutely dominate. I don't know, but I'm actually starting to.
Not only I agree with you wholly, but it's not only the fact that he's maybe struggling at this distance. It's the fact that his peers that he's racing against at this distance have changed. When he was coming into this long course game and he was coming up against, an aging out Jan Frodeno, a Lionel Sanders who was hit and miss in certain places, a Gomez who never really stepped up and made that impact. All the big names or a Patrick Lang who races in that sort of old school manner as well, but with a fast run at the end. If he was coming into that environment, I would be like, okay, well, Alistair still have his day here but he's not. With the Norwegians having stepped up as they have, the peers he was expecting to race in long course have changed around him. And I can't see him rising to meet that level with the amount of injuries he seems to get.
Here's a question, again, hypothetical. And I love doing this stuff. I think Alistair Brownlee, I don't know, what do you reckon is better? 2012, 2016? I reckon, let's say, but
2012, because it was London.
Let's just say gold medal winning Alistair Brownlee versus peak gold medal winning Kristian Blummenfelt.
Alistair Brownlee all day, every day.
Yeah. So, see, that's what sort of makes me go, because we talk about how the Norwegians are up in things and everything, but I'm like, it's still this thing in the back of my head where it's like, we know how good he can be and we know how high he flew at that distance. It's just, I guess I'm hoping that he'll apply that same whatever.
Right, we'll add this into it. You talked about athlete age. You talked about actual age. Those are two metrics that we can measure. What about, now I know that he's a very driven and he's very successful, but what about giving a fuck age? At what point does your subconscious start to go?
It's a really good point. I'm on the IOC committee now. I'm on the athlete board. I've got the 2 gold medals. I'm like, I keep getting injured. I keep having this stuff happen. It's like, fuck it, I don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah, I just don't need this. I've got such huge endorsements and sponsorships. I've made a load of money and I've got other things I could move on to.
See, maybe that's the thing. Maybe it is a case of, I can't remember who I seen somebody talk about, was this idea of some athletes going out on top and others starting to fizzle. Maybe it is going to be a case of, like, that decision to retire can be scary. And I've heard Chris say this a lot, like, you retire for a long time. Mm. Maybe it will be a case that maybe sponsors will start to lose interest or lose faith. Like, I mean, in reality, the harsh reality is that it has been 6 years since, and he won Bustleton. I know this, he's come second it's 6 years since he's really, really done, like, Rio. That's the biggest thing. That's 6 years ago now. Like, it's been a long time since we've seen Alistair Brownlee do what we all expect Alistair Brownlee to do. And at some point, maybe the sponsors will start to go, okay, we might try somewhere else now. Maybe that'll be the thing that he's like, fucking hell, what's the point? I'm not even going to get paid well to do this anymore. Like, fuck
the way he is moving, like you said earlier, like moving into more of a sort of working like a bureaucratic, like Sleb Co type thing. I think his we are really speculating now, but I think his sights are set more on, you know what? I don't need to earn my money through triathlon-based sponsorships from whatever, bike companies, whatever. I can earn more money being who I am and the weight my name carries in sort of bureaucratic sports.
Or commentating. We know how good he is at that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there has to be a transition at some point away from relying on these sponsorships that he's got and going, you know what, there's more money to be made out there and I'm Alistair Brownlee. Fuck you, world. I'm coming.
Fuck, I still hope he does. I hope he works it out, mate, because I really, really, really want to. I guess what
I know what you want to see. You want to see that 70.3 worlds with him and Frodeno, but you want to see it at long course.
Yeah, I really. It's more just like I really want to see his excellence. Like, because I still think that that London race and that Rio race are still two of the best. I mean, that what he did to short course, like it changed everything. And I guess I still am desperate and hoping to see, and we're seeing the Norwegians do it at the moment, but I still kind of just want to see what Ali could do to long course. Like, we talk about these athletes that come and change the game. We're seeing it at the moment. We saw Jan did it. We've seen Cam Worth do it. We've seen all these people do it. I want to see what Ali Brownlee does. Like, that's something that I would love to see. And I'm starting to think maybe we won't. But fingers crossed, mate. I have faith. I have faith, but my faith is starting to waver just a little bit.
Let's talk about something other than the Brownies for a bit, shall we?
Well, let's talk about an Ironman race, mate, that happened over the weekend in Lake Placid, something that we talked about last week. Now, I'm not going to go into super depth because, to be honest, they weren't the most deep fields out there, but we're going to talk about Ironman Lake Placid. Jonathan Turner, Tri 24/7, put together the summary. And one thing I definitely want to talk about is the fact that Sarah True won this race, because that's what I was talking about last week. But we'll go to the race summary. The only person ahead of True was Rachel Zielinskis, who was out of the water first. She clocked a 50:57 and was well clear of the rest. Sarah True was 4:38 back. But that big gap came down quickly on the bike, so much so that True had built up a lead of nearly 2 minutes by the halfway point of the bike. And from then on, she was in complete control. By T2, True had blitzed the field. True cruised home to an emphatic win, 16 minutes and 1 second to the good, with Heather Jackson second and Robertson rounding out an American 1-2-3. Speaking afterwards to Mike Riley, True said, "I took a 3-year hiatus from Ironman racing, came back slowly and didn't put a date on it, but I just wanted to race for the love of the sport. I didn't really care about the result, but it is really nice to win." So in first place, Sarah True, 9 hours flat. Second place, Heather Jackson, 9:16. Third place, Jodie Robinson, 9:22. Now, I guess we spoke about this last week, and I said that I hope we see Sarah True firing, because she's an athlete that I really think is going to do well at a race like Kona, when she doesn't go in having DNF'd at 3 if she can work out the heat. She's going to Kona now.
Yeah, you called it, didn't you? You called it. And winning 16 minutes to the good against Heather Jackson is, that shows the domination she really brought to this race. And I love the fact that she took a 3-year hiatus from Ironman racing and came back slowly. She didn't rush it. She came back with no particular worries about ego or desire. It was more just, I'm going to work my way back to this and show what I can do. And she really did show what she can do here.
She legitimately is an athlete I want to see go to Kona 100%. Like, I think she could have a real impact on that race in Kona. And I'm hoping, you know what, maybe it isn't this year. Maybe it is the case. She's coming back slowly. She's not going to go all in. I don't know. But it definitely shows that she's come back and she's not lost it. And she's got, it's a very, very exciting prospect, I think, for me, because I'm a huge Sarah True fan. I actually had somebody message our Instagram account this week saying, like, "I love Sarah True too." Like, yes, good pick, Tim. Like, this is great. Like, yes, another True believer. Oh, that's a funny thing. Her name's, there you go. That's a little, maybe that's what she call her fan base, True believers. On the men's race. So I don't know if the men's race was quite exciting, mate, to be honest. I'll buckle up. Metzler was to the fore, exiting T1 in first place, a split second ahead of Pamfield Peyron from Belgium and Cody Beals and James Camparo from the USA in close attendance. I know that Cody Beals is Canadian. And it stayed similarly tight well into the scenic bike course with no change to the front three. Well past the halfway point, there was less than 5 seconds between Metzler, Perrion and Beals. But heading towards T2, Metzler started to assert, and also moving into the picture was Michael Weiss, who had given up a minute in the swim. Starting out on the marathon, Metzler had a 1:33 advantage over Weiss, with Pyron now 3:14 back, and Beals 6 minutes 45 adrift. And early on the run, no one was moving more smoothly than Metzler, which started to contrast sharply with Weiss. But alarm bells started ringing with around 10 miles to go when Metzler slowed to a walk, potentially cramping or overheating. And it didn't take long for his big lead to be rapidly reduced, with Beals now looking strong and Weiss back on an even keel, suddenly also a threat. Beals powered past, as did Weiss soon afterwards, and that pair filled the top 2 places, earning Kona places in the process. Metzler bravely kept on for fourth, with Peyron completing the podium. Afterwards, Beals said, "My grandfather died exactly a week ago. He was the biggest fan of mine. He was on my mind all day, and I just wanted to honour him with that performance." So first place, Cody Beals, 8:15. Second place, Michael Weiss, 8:17. Third place, Pamfield Pyron, 8:23. And then in fourth place, Justin Metzler, 8:27.
Sounds like an exciting race, mate. And, I've got a lot of time for Cody Beals and the way that he went out and honoured his granddad who died a week before the race. It's something like that happening. It would be very easy to allow that to derail your race rather than to lift it up. And he obviously went out with his granddad in his mind and allowed that thought process to carry him through the race. So congratulations, Cody. And I'm pleased that that's the result he got after something like that happening to him.
I think he also won the same race as, I'm guessing now, I think he also won the same race, that Eagleman 70.3 that Sarah True won. So they've both won that race together and they've come on this one together. But again, he's got his Kona slot. And Cody Beals is an athlete that I have a lot of time for. Same. I think that he's a really good shining example of all the good things in this sport. And yeah, I'm excited to see that he was at Kona, because I have been a bit worried about Cody Beals this year. He hasn't seemed quite as he has been in the past, but I guess maybe he's just been racing into the season, because he's certainly getting better and better and better as he goes on. So, and again, I don't know if you heard this, but apparently Lake Placid's in real strife, mate. There's been a lot of community backlash and they don't like the race happening there. And they're saying that maybe it won't happen anymore. And I know that it's like, the second ever race that was in America or something like that. So it's quite an iconic one. So
that's a real shame.
Yeah,
that's a real shame.
Apparently, I saw that they've got like a guide for the athletes going there. You've got to be really careful. You can't, basically don't piss off the locals, because if you piss off the locals, we're not going to be welcome back.
It's America, they're pretty shitty, aren't
they? Mate, that was one of my fears when I was in America racing. Actually, I do want to go back to American race next year. I've got my eye on a few races that I want to go do, because racing in America is very good. They're wild, mate. The support on course is. I've never experienced anything like it. I'm actually contemplating. Here we go. I'll tell you, this is an off-air conversation. I'm contemplating ducking over to Dallas for the PTO event, because Qantas fly directly from Sydney to Dallas, and my brother flies that route. So I've been trying to say, mate, if you work that trip, I'll come with you. I'll go to the race, and then we'll make like a 4-day trip out of it.
Nice.
So maybe go race in America. That might happen. So we'll see. Speaking of the PTO, mate. There was a PTO event on the weekend in Edmonton, Canada. Now, I know you've been on break off in the mountains. Have you had a chance to see any of the coverage of this race?
I did not watch this race. Now, what I did do, though, was pay attention to the chat that was taking place in the MX. If I'm honest, races that I can't watch or can't get near a screen to see, the MX Endurance WhatsApp group is almost as good as a rolling commentary feed. So I paid attention through that, but I haven't actually seen any of it take place.
Now, I have watched one of these races, and I don't want to be accused of being a sexist pig or anything. I had grand plans of waking up on Sunday morning and putting on the replay of the women's race, because the races started at like 4 a.m. And for some reason last weekend, I slept for like 11 hours. I've not done that in years, but anyway. So I slept in on Sunday morning for the first. I got up at like 8 a.m. and I thought, okay, let's watch the PTO replay of the women's race. And lo and behold, it was not possible. You have to wait 48 hours until after the race has happened to watch the replay. So I could have it doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. I've seen a lot of the clips on social media. Same thing. I went through the MX thing and read it because I was trying to avoid spoilers. And then friend of the podcast, Fernanda Napoleon, literally had a story showing Ashley Jenner. I was like, for Christ's sake, why? Like, let me see what happened. But so I haven't seen the women's race, unfortunately, but we'll go through it. I have an idea of what happened.
So we do the women's race first then?
We can. Do you want to go through it? Because I can talk about the men's race because I watched it. So
yeah, okay. So on the women's race, I'll list the results first. First place was Ashley Gentle in 3:30.54. Second place was Paula Finley, 3:33.16. Third place was Chelsea Sodaro in 3:34.34 with Laura Phillip, Julie Derren, Holly Lawrence, Victoria Lopez, Ellie Soltas, Sophie Watts, and Nicola Spirig rounding out the top 10. Now, Ashley Gentle said that after an epic PTO Canadian Open victory, the clouds have lifted. She said the last couple of years have not been easy for any triathlete, and Ashley Gentle is high on the list of those who've suffered. But on Saturday in Canada, the clouds lifted. The ravages of the COVID pandemic have made it extremely difficult for elite stars to make a living, and in the case of Australians, to even compete internationally. No wonder then that the 31-year-old Gentle was clearly emotional after romping to a brilliant victory at the inaugural PTO Canadian Open in Edmonton. Ashley Gentle said, "I'm just super happy, super excited. I just had the most amazing day today, and it's not been the easiest 2 or 3 years. I'm just grateful for all the people who kept believing in me in that time, because I'm really proud of myself right now. It's an absolute dream getting the check of $100,000. It's going to take a really long time to sink in. I didn't start sport triathlon because of the money, but I do have bills to pay. I'm an adult. The opportunity that the PTO has given us here with their $1 million prize purse is definitely going to go a long way, and I'm extremely grateful. She admitted the swim's always been something which I'm really struggled with. I've put my heart and soul into improving my swim, and it's not often that I actually put it together in the race. Today, I let go of everything. I was just liberated, and it really worked. I started swimming at 14 years old, and I've never given up, and that was probably the best swim of my life. It definitely set up my day perfectly. Now, am I right in thinking, Mr. Ford, that you called this? Was she your pick?
No, I didn't. She wasn't. I think I said what I said is she was almost my pick, but I said I think I've always found Ash has just been a little like she's a bit hot and cold. When she's hot, she's fucking firing. But then there's, like I said, the PTO championship where Emma Pallant-Brown ran like 7 minutes into her. Now Emma Pallant-Brown, who I picked, DNF'd. It sounded like she had some problems, but I'm absolutely not surprised that Ash did this. And mate, the way she did it to come from, I can't even remember what the gap was. It was a significant gap behind Paula Finlay.
Yeah, it was considerable.
And then to run 3 minutes into her, and Paula Finlay is not a crap athlete here. Like the women's race sounded like there was a lot. I believe it was Victoria Lopez who was first out of the water, and then like sort of a group of them were together on the bike. Now, again watching it, one of the things I've realized this weekend watching or following along the PTO events is watching triathlon fans on social media complain about drafting is like so basic, and I'm sick to death of it. Like every time there's a race on, it's like, I don't know if you have. I used to go to the rugby league a lot when I was a kid, and like the sort of standard people you always find at a rugby league game are the ones going, "Get him back 10, ref. Get him back 10. He's offside, ref. Oh, your eyes painted on." Watching age group triathletes talking about a race while it's happening. That's what I'm always like. They're drafting it. It's become this like, we get it, okay? Stop going on. We get it. Stop going on about the drafting. But it sounds like in the women's race, it was particularly bad, especially through the transition area where they rode through a bunch of times. I believe that it got quite narrow and then bunched up and then sort of spread out a bit. But despite that, having Ash Gentle literally just run through the way she did, and then had Chelsea Sodaro, who came third, actually ran past Laura Phillip, who I think we both expected to be right up there. I found that Laura Phillip performance quite interesting, to be honest. Because
I think it made me annoyingly agree with you what you said last week about how over this sort of distance you're going to see some more of the shorter course, more fast twitch athletes firing, and it irritated me because I was like, Tim was right, and my brain was like, fucking hell, those words don't sound nice.
I mean, the other thing, Nicola Sprig was 10th place, mate. Like, you think I shouldn't be surprised because Nicola is Nicola, but like she beat some absolute world class people there, and yeah, mate, I think it was. Yeah, again, I mean, I am going to watch this race. It is definitely on my list of things to do when I'm on the train. I think I said I've gone through the entire sub-7, sub-8 broadcast. Watching the women's race is one, but Ashley Gentle, mate, like I think that what I did say, one of my big picks for this year, or like my like big calls, was that I think Ash Gentle can win 70.3 worlds, and I stand by it. If she fires like she did here, she can win 70.3 worlds this year. Yeah, she is that good an athlete.
I particularly loved her interview, and it wasn't your standard, I'm really happy to have won the race. It was a real glimpse behind the curtain of how difficult these last few years have been for certain people, for everybody really. But, some athletes from their professional world have been hit harder, certainly in Australia, really, with the lack of ability to travel, the earnings that people have missed out on. And then that shows, what a difference prize purses like this can make. And good on the PTO for rolling these sort of things out, if I'm honest.
Well, let's talk about the men's race, because this is the one that I did watch. I didn't watch the swim. I'll be honest. I got up I think I set the alarm for like 5:15 to get up for this one, because again, I had intended to watch the replay, but realized I wouldn't be able to. So I got up early for this one. And when I turned it on, I think it was first out of all was Henry Schumann, and there was a group with Henry. I think it was Alistair Brownlee. I'm not sure. Aaron Royal, I think, might have been up there. But there was this group of them, and then when I turned it on, it was Sam Laidlaw and Alistair Brownlee were on the front of the bike, and they looked to be doing quite well, and there was lots of people behind, and it sort of stayed like that, to be honest. It sort of stayed like Alistair and Sam just went together on the bike. Henry. Who else was with Henry? There's Henry. There was, who else was with him? A few people, and they dropped back quite significantly. Like there was suddenly a big gap between Ali and Sam at the front, and the group with like Kristian and Gustav, because they were riding together, didn't really like. They sort of got a bit closer to Ali and that, and then it just went back again. And to the point where I was thinking, fucking hell, here we go, Alistair Brownlee, he's got it. We know that Sam Laidlaw sort of struggles on the run a little bit. This is Alistair Brownlee's race. So they get off the bike, and I'll be honest, the second that Alistair Brownlee, he missed the dismount line, so he's over. And I'm watching, like, what's he doing? And he dismounts after the line, and then he sort of realizes what he's done, and he runs back to the line and then runs across. And I thought, like, what do you know what the penalty is for like missing the dismount? I don't even know what it is, but they didn't give it to him. Like they said, what you've done is
stop and go. But I mean, if he's gonna retroactively, if he's gonna immediately correct his decision, his mistake, then he is likely going to have suffered more of a penalty himself than he would have gained. So, you know.
Well, he did that anyway. So then you've got Sam Laidlaw is in and he's gone. And I'm thinking, mate, enjoy it while it lasts because Alistair's coming through. And I swear to God, from like the first step you see Alistair take, you're like, no, something ain't right with Alistair Brownlee.
Obvious, was it?
Yeah, like you know what I mean. Close your eyes and imagine Alistair Brownlee running. You can visualize it. Like he's one of those people that you can see Alistair Brownlee running. You know what it looks like, and he just didn't look right. And the commentators, you could see, like they're like, oh, you could see that he was pushing his guts, like he might have had a stitch. And mate, next minute he's walking, and the look on his, it was hard to watch. Like genuinely watching.
Was it
two-time
like
gold medalist
Frodo at Roth kind of thing, you know?
No, mate, it was actually like I thought he was going to burst into tears. Like it was like upsetting to watch because the camera's right on him, mate. Like I'm talking, there was this long straight across a bridge, and Ali's running straight at the camera, and he just stops.
Blimey.
And it was pretty hard to watch. And then he sort of anyway running along, walking a bit, whatever. But the things for Sam Laidlaw's gone, but you've got Kristian and Gustav running shoulder to shoulder, and I'm like, here we fucking go. Like this is the thing I've been talking about. We've seen them race in 2018 when they did Bahrain together. We've not really seen them. It's go time. We're finally going to see this incredible thing. Now at this point, I think Sam Laidlaw was still in front. They come out on their second lap, and Kristian and Gustav are flying. And next minute, the camera shows Gustav's by himself, and Kristian is stopped, pushing his hands on his quad like real hard. Obviously, I was really worried where it was that it might have torn or popped, like something might have popped.
It's a cramp,
I'm like, fucking hell, there's a cramp. Kristian Blummenfelt might be out of this race. Like he's literally the Olympic champion, the Ironman World champion, the everything is standing there, like just pushing out this bloody cramp or whatever it was. I'm thinking it's day over. Like he's not gonna keep going. It's all over, Red Rover. And then Gustav's off, just doing what Gustav does, and then Sam Laidlaw, who's winning the race, stops and cramps as well, just as Gustav comes past. So and I saw somebody put up, it's like every time Gustav ran past someone, because Gustav runs past Alistair Brownlee as he's stopping. He's running with Kristian, he stops. He's running with Sam Laidlaw and he stops. It's like Gustav's got some black magic shit happening because he just made everybody cramp. But what is that? Three of the top four all cramp, and Gustav just keeps running. And it's like, okay, game over. I guess this is what's going to happen. We're just going to see the Gustav show. And fucking lo and behold, mate, next minute, when the commentators don't know what's going, they said, oh, Kristian's definitely stopped. There's no point pushing it. Day's over. We're going to see him. I think Barry Shepley was saying, oh, he'll walk off course. Next minute, the camera goes, there's Kristian Blummenfelt running 10 seconds per kilometre faster than Gustav Iden.
Love it.
And what really, the one thing I've really, at Sub, we had every statistic imaginable. You could work out the gaps, the pace differences, everything. You could see projected when they were. That was the one thing that I wish they had maybe a better grasp over with this, because you couldn't really tell it's like, is he going to catch him? How long does it came? And it came down to, they said that at the far turnaround, there's 2.5K to the finish line. And they said, if Kristian's within about 30 seconds, we think that he can catch Gustav. And he's definitely catching it. I think the gap was about 1.5 minutes. And at that last turnaround, it was 42 seconds. So Kristian is fucking flying. And you're thinking, shit, is he going to do this? Like, is Kristian actually going to catch Gustav Iden? And he didn't. But bloody hell, mate, if it wasn't for Kristian Blummenfelt, this would have just been another championship, another PTO champ. Gustav just going off the front doing his thing. Gustav was looking over his shoulder, mate, while he's running. Like, he's doing the mad, like, where the fuck is this guy? Is he coming for me? Is he going to get me? And literally both of them, like Gustav collapses at the finish line. Kristian collapses at the finish line. It was epic. And then you have Aaron Royal, who, again, I don't think, I would wager that nobody in the entire world of triathlon would have picked Aaron Royal for consideration. I might be wrong. I certainly didn't.
No, I didn't.
Comes across in third. And mate, it was fantastic. Like that dynamic between those two guys was like something to behold. But there was so much in this, like the fact that there was all these cramps, and it's like, what is it about this? And I've spoken with a lot of people. Is it because the athletes treat it like a 70.3, but maybe it is more like an Olympic distance?
Possibly. But so I'm sure if I tried to run with Gustav, I'd cramp up as well. He knows how to push people to the limits.
But I think the thing about it is though, it's not normal. You see someone have that sort of cramp that they're spending 90 seconds on the side of the road to then come back running 10 seconds faster.
No.
Than they were before the cramp.
So are we in a position now where we would say, were it not for that cramp, Kristian Blummenfelt would have won this race?
This is what I wanted to talk about. This is the thing that because again, who knows? It's if they had have run shoulder to shoulder, what would have, I don't know. But the way Kristian did that, and we know Kristian's a very special sort of person, and we know that he says it hurts more to lose. I genuinely was like, fuck, I guess we, like, all things considered, he's a different level, mate. But I think at this point in time, it's both of them. Like, it was at no point did it look like it was going to, again, maybe on the bike, but nobody was touching those Norwegians, mate. It was literally a race for third place. Mm. Like, those two, while that was it was very, very exciting, it was also like, we had this incredibly deep field. And to be honest, for me, there's something it could maybe because we just saw sub 7, it was like the head-to-head, or we saw the tri battle, the head-to-head. You could have put Kristian versus Gustav and given them the entire prize purse, and I would have been happy with this race. Like, I didn't need everybody else in the race to make it an event for me. Like, I would have just been happy to see those two
exactly what
go head-to-head.
I was saying earlier about Alistair Brownlee stepping up to long course. It's almost like there's two different fields at the moment. There's your standard triathlete people, and then there's Norwegians racing each other. And it's like the dynamic has totally shifted. And we've got a quote here from Gustav after the race. He said he got there, and I started to. Well, this is Blummenfelt running shoulder to shoulder. He said he got there, and I started to kind of get a bit comfortable behind him. And then he suddenly pulled out with cramp, and I was thinking, damn! But now I've got this, no problem. Then I see him in a turnaround over there, and it's actually not that far behind, and he's gaining on me, and I'm a bit low on energy. And the last lap was a full-on struggle. Iden added that he'd heard he had just 30 seconds in hand coming into the last 2 kilometers. And he said, I was thinking, that's 15 seconds per kilometer. I mean, Kristian has done it before, so he can do it again. But luckily, I managed to keep him behind. He's such a pest, isn't he?
He's, mate, it was like, in all seriousness, you're watching it going, get fucked, Kristian. Like, how are you doing this, mate? Like, this is actually like, there's not many people. And what, like, it was just, fuck. Like, there was nobody else touching those two. And I think, I love it, but I also am a bit like, I reckon this race maybe would have been better if you took those two out. Like, and I don't want to see, we've got to pull the best, or do we need more of the, like, I don't think Jan would have been able to do it with him. I don't think Patrick Lang would have been able to do it with him. Like, it is almost a bit of a like, shit, these guys are just so far ahead of everybody at the moment. It's almost hard not to buy into the hype train a little bit. Like, I don't know how you could, especially these short distances where the race is it is so much about the run.
Have you bought a ticket to the hype train now? You paid
I've always been on the hype train. Yeah. I've always been no, but like, in all seriousness, I think this was it. Yeah, I remember watching it going, to me, like, I guess I was thinking, like, does the big prize person and stuff actually really make a difference to the racing? Like, if you had have slashed the prizes by half, would this have, I still think these two going like this would have probably happened. Because they're so far ahead, and all the other places are where all the, like, that's where the, the biggest change in prize really is for those people that are finishing mid-pack. You didn't see it, mate. Like, to be honest, the broadcast only showed as they should have. Like, it was very much the Kristian Gustav show. So it almost felt like a bit of a like, mate, just give those two the prize money and let's just have them go head to head, because this is they're the only ones really able to compete with each other at the moment. And that's why I've got this next thing, and I'm going to pull it into the conversation because it is a bit of a summary that I saw Graham Shaw from Try 24/7 did. And it's Kristian Blummenfelt says $70,000 isn't too bad after refusing to quit. Big Blue gained vital PTO ranking points in the process, but he also pocketed a terrific $70,000 paycheck for his efforts, which was part of the prize pool. He said, afterwards, I was cramping up and I was happy to be able to come back again in the race and fight for the win, at least at the end, and be back on the podium. At one point there, I thought I had to pull out, and then to now come back and get second and $70,000 isn't too bad. He said it was important for the PTO points, and I knew that as long as I'm close enough to him, I should be able to stay ranked at the number one. That was going over in my mind, so I just tried to put some pressure on him and get as close as possible. Now, the reason I wanted to put that in there is because while I was talking about was the prize money really worth it, this to me sort of says maybe it was, because or maybe not the prize, but a combination of the things that the PTO is doing, the ranking system, the way the points, whether you love them or hate them, the way they work, the fact that there are all these incentives now for the athletes. Like if let's say this was just a 70.3 that we somehow got all these people racing at. So the prize isn't high. There's not rankings. There's slots. Yeah. Kristian probably wouldn't have pushed the way he did. Like that's what I mean.
Carried on, but
that's what I mean.
So couple this with prize money, ranking points, and then add into that the fact that it's the Kristian Gustav rivalry, and he didn't want to give Gustav that mental sort of win. We were racing, Kristian had to pull out. We were racing, I got a cramp, but then I ran the rest of the race faster than you, motherfucker. So don't take that as a mental win, because without that cramp, I'd have been there.
I would love to be a fly on the wall between those two, because it's like, yeah, but I won 70.3, Kristian's like, yeah, but I had a mechanical. Yeah, but I beat you in Edmonton. Yeah, but I had a cramp. Like, I beat you in Nice. Oh, but like, I imagine that Kristian's the sort of guy that he obviously is very happy that Gustav does well, but he'd also be like, don't you think you've got my number here, mate? Like, I ran faster than you those last 10K. But like, I'm a bit torn, because again, I sort of look at this, and I mean, I don't want to come out super neat. I thought the broadcast was okay. It was fine. It wasn't this super revolutionary thing that we've been expecting to see. I think that the big prize money in a lot of ways didn't really impact. Yes, we had deep fields, but as I sort of said, for the men's race at least, it didn't really feature that much.
Was it anywhere near the one of the things, sub-7, sub-8 broadcast standard?
No, anyway. Like not even in the same ballpark. But like some of the other things, because I don't just want to talk about the Norwegians. Lionel Sanders, I think I was surprised. I expected Lionel to run a lot better than he did. He ran, I don't think he was like Sebastian Kienle had the fourth fastest run of the day or something. He ran like sub-hour. But Lionel's swim was terrible, mate. Like it was like one of the last out of the water, like literally, I think one of the last out of the water. And he had the slowest transitions. And it's just that constant evolution of Lionel as the athlete, because I seriously think we're seeing this. I really feel like we're seeing this renaissance, or this new Lionel Sanders coming through, because he is just such I think a much better athlete. But then it's like slowest transitions. I'm like, dude, like these are the little things that I expect you to have nailed by now. So he just didn't really feature. I expected to see him maybe do a bit more. I mean, kudos to Alistair Brownlee for continuing the race and not giving up, because I was also worried that it might have been the hip thing. But yeah, it was. I'd recommend you watch it. I know that they've got, for people who haven't watched the whole thing, there's a 1 hour highlights package. I just stomach cramps. Okay. Just got something wrong with nutrition, I think. Right. But there's a 1 hour highlights package on their YouTube channel that you can watch if you don't want to do like me and watch the entire broadcast. But yeah, it's good to have some good racing.
Nice.
Yeah,
I better get forward to the Collins Cup point then, so I can add more to this discussion next time around.
Exactly. Now, we didn't talk about this last week, mate, but when this comes out, the men's and women's Commonwealth Games race will happen, but the mixed team relay will not have. So we got a little bit of a summary for you from Try 24/7 John Levinson about the mixed team relay, which is happening Sunday, UK time. So if you've watched the Olympics, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but it's 2 men, 2 women from a country. They make a team. Each athlete competes a short super sprint style triathlon before handing it over. Then we said it's in Powell's Pool in Sutton Park in Birmingham. Then 1 lap 5K and then 4 lap course used in the individual race, finishing with a 2K run around the park. There's one significant difference in Birmingham relative of the two previous editions. Following the rule changes implemented by World Triathlon from 2022, the racing for all teams will now be man, woman, man, woman. And in Glasgow, it was Team England, and in Gold Coast, it was Team Australia. So what are you expecting to see happen this weekend?
I think it's going to be a very interesting race. I don't expect to see Team Australia up there, if I'm honest. I think
it's brutal, mate. It's brutal.
I think Team England have got a real good shot of taking this one through. I love the mixed relay, as you know, as you do as well. I think it's something that has been a real gold standard addition to triathlon racing, because it's so short and powerful and fast, basically, for the athletes. Yet it makes it a longer watching experience for the audience. So you don't have, like, Super League is brilliant, but it's very bite-sized in terms of audience enjoyment. Whereas this is a longer race, and I love that. Whilst also maintaining that speed and intensity. I think, I expect to see Team England take it out, mate. What are your thoughts on the results for this one?
Yeah, Team England's going to win this, mate. Team England's definitely going to win it, no doubt in my mind. And then, I don't know, Australia could be on the podium, maybe Scotland, South Africa, Canada. But yeah, I think this is almost a certainty for England to win this.
Agreed. So it's Sunday afternoon. The start time is 14:31 UK, which is 15:31 Central European time, and 9:31 Eastern time.
Get on it. James Bale, what's next?
Welcome to the down low on the PTO. Mate, we have had, after the PTO race in Edmonton, the Canadian Open, they have formalised and finalised the Collins Cup automatic qualification places for Team Europe, Team USA and Team Internationals, ahead of the second edition of the event on the 20th of August in the extraordinary Expo Onyx Sphere in Bratislava. For Team Europe, the four qualified women are Daniela Rief, Anne Haug, Laura Philipp and Kat Matthews. The four men are Kristian Blummenfelt, Gustav Iden, Patrick Lang and Magnus Ditlev. For Team USA, the four top women are Taylor Knibb, Skye Monch, Chelsea Sodaro and Jackie Herring. The four men are Matt Hansen, Sam Long, Rudy von Berg and Chris Lefferman. For Team International, the four women are Paula Finley, Ashley Gentle, Tamara Jewett and Ellie Salthouse. The four men are Lionel Sanders, Braden Curry, Max Newman and Jackson Laundry. The four automatic qualifications were finalised after this weekend's PTO Canadian Open. And, we're starting to see the shape and structure of the Collins Cup come about, mate. What are your thoughts on these selections so far?
Mate, again, it's a who's who, isn't it? Like, you look at these, and it's interesting that there are some changes to last year. Obviously, we've got no Jan Frodeno for Europe.
Yeah.
We've got Patrick Lang up there who wasn't there last year. We've got Kristian Blummenfelt who didn't race last year.
No Daniel Beckegaard.
Like, it is no Daniel Beckegaard. It's very different. But I think, I look at all the names and they're all quality.
Totally.
They're all quality. And the other thing I find a bit interesting, while Europe is definitely still the strongest, and I still argue that Team Great Britain should be their own team, it feels a bit more balanced this year. I think that maybe with 12 months of looking at this more, I guess, the bit more focus on that sort of middle distance / slightly shorter. We had Daytona, we have Miami, we have Edmonton. Like, we have these sort of slightly shorter races now. We're seeing a different breed of athlete, I guess, coming in. But I look at, for example, Europe International. Paula Finlay, excellent. Ashley Gentle, excellent. Tamara Jewett can run like clappers. Ellie Salthouse, excellent. Like, it's not feeling to me as if there's a huge gap as there was last year, which it feels a bit more balanced.
And also, your argument that Team Great Britain should be its own team, the only difference would be Kat Matthews. No one else in there would be taken out.
There's still plenty of other people who could be on your British team.
I'm not interested in the British team. What I mean is the strength of this.
I know what you're saying.
It wouldn't change.
Correct. It's not a British team this year. It should be I know. It's very, mate. It is really looking good. Like, I feel like I'm really excited to see who the wild cards are going to be. Are we going to see Daniel Beckegaard get the wild card for Europe, or is it going to be like who? There's so many people now they could pick. Is Sam Laidlaw, after what he did in Edmonton, going to get the captain's pick? Like, you just don't know. It's exciting, and I like that. Yeah, it feels. I don't know. It feels better this year. I don't think that's the right word, but
I think there appears to be a better balance this year.
That's what I'm going for,
and I think we'll see better racing. One thing I do want to say is I'm really pleased that Magnus Ditlev, after his result in Roth, got the automatic qualification spot because it's very well deserved. I think, the captain's pick will be interesting to see roll out, but
who would you pick if you're the captain of Team Europe? Who are your captain's picks? Men's and women's, 2 of each.
Danny Beckegaard.
Yep.
Who else would I pick for Team Europe? Joe Skipper. And then on the women's side, I would pick.
Emma Pallant-Brown, mate.
Yeah,
it has to be Emma Pallant-Brown.
Emma Pallant-Brown, and I'd give someone like India Lee a shot.
Okay, interesting, mate. Who would I pick? Ash Jones. Mate, it's tough, isn't it? Kyle Smith. I reckon Kyle Smith for the internationals for the men, and mate, I'd go wild and go I'd see if Hayden Wild wants to have a go. Like, come on, Hayden.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Come do this for us, and then for the women, who we got? We Ash Journal, Tamara Jewett, Ellie Solhouse.
It's difficult to find. It's difficult to find those captains' picks. I think on the women's side for Team International.
We can do it. Who have we got? We've got. Oh man, I'm on the spot now. This is boring. People don't like to hear us wait. I'll think about it and I'll come back next. I'll report back next week with my captain's picks. But I'm really excited about the Cons Cup this year. I like the format. I think that there's obviously room for improvement, and I know the PTO have obviously listened and they're taking a lot of that feedback on board. I agree with what you say about I've seen some comments around I still think that the discourse around the Roth points is a bit ridiculous, and I'm a bit sick of it.
Yeah, same.
I think Magnus Ditlev. I was talking to somebody about Magnus's performance this week, and I said to them, I feel like what the problem with that performance is we've been bedazzled recently in the last 6 months with what's been happening in long course racing. Gustav's Cozumel, Kristian's Cozumel, Gustav's makes Florida, sub 7, sub 8. Like we've started to see these incredible times, but not really times. Like Cozumel, we know the which again I don't care. I think is still an incredible performance. Sub 7, sub 8, a bit different, but Magnus's second ever Ironman equaled Jan Frodeno's, which was until last year the world record at his second ever Ironman. Like I feel like it's that performance. There's so much focus on the weird point thing that it's almost taken away from just how incredible that. Like if you objectively look at that performance, it's fucking impressive, mate. For somebody that young to race the way he did and get that performance, it's very, very, very it really is to me one of the standout performances this year. Yeah, I think so. I feel like it's been caught up in there's so much other stuff going on that people are sort of they've neglected to look at the performance as the performance. Let's forget about the ranking. Let's forget about the PTO. Let's forget about that stuff. Just look at this race in the context of other performances. Like the fact that equals Jan Frodeno's record, it blows my mind. Yeah, like it exactly. Really. And
when you get wrapped up in the metrics are the metrics. He did what he did, what he needed to do to get those points, and he wasn't racing with those points in mind. He wasn't like, well, I'm gonna do my race in a certain way so I get the highest points ever. It was just a fucking good race and a fucking good result and a really strong performance, and you can't lose sight of that. But people do.
Exactly, they do. Anyway. James Bale, if you like this podcast, if you want to get more of this podcast, you can head to mxendurance.com/podcast where you can sign up for our podcast membership. It gets you access to exclusive member benefits, bonus content we record every single month, as well as whole other things, partner discounts, all these goodies. We have some big changes coming to MX, mate. We've been having a lot of meetings behind the scenes, and MX is about to get a major overhaul. We're about to change exactly what we do at MX for the positive, for the better. It's a very, very exciting time. So if you want to get ahead of the curve and know what that stuff is, head to mxendurance.com/podcast. James, if they want to find out other things, where do they need to go?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at T414 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app, which is super easy and really helpful. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend. Help us grow. And if you've got any comments, suggestions, criticisms, or questions, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
Perfection. Well, Jimbo, I'm not going to hold you up any longer. Go get to Alpe d'Huez.
I'm on it, mate.
Soak it all up.
Your man on the ground.
Enjoy it.
Take care.
Perfect.
Cheerio.
Talk to you later, mate.